Getting there.
Yep. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Career Development Day here at Coldwell Banker Premier. It is Thursday, the 27th, and today we are going to be going over, actually, Michael is, because this is what he's done for a long time and he knows a lot about it. So I'm looking forward to listening about REOs. Without further ado, I'm recording this, and if Michael you can share, I'm going to make you the host and you share how you want people, how you want people to interact if they want to just ask questions as you go or hold them to the end, whatever you want. You are host now, so there you go.
Right. Good afternoon or good morning, Coldwell Banker Premier. Thanks for coming on with us this morning. I am going to be telling you a little bit about REO, the good side and the bad side. It's something a lot of people are interested in. They're not sure exactly what it's all entailing. And I'm going to give you a little bit of information about if it's something that you would be interested in or not. So let's see. Can you see my screen right now?
Nope.
Nope. All right. Let's see here. All righty, guys, let's try this.
You hitting share screen and it's not doing it?
Yep. Is it not on now?
Nope.
Okay, awesome. Okay, try this again. Share screen.
Is there anybody in there with you?
Oh, I apologize. I've got I think I got so many windows up that's causing me an issue. Let's see here. No. All right, guys. Can you see my screen now?
Yep, there you go.
All right, excellent. Let's see here. All right, well, we'll get into REO. What is REO? Well, if REO was easy, everybody would be doing it. REO stands for real estate owned, which is how banks refer to their foreclosure inventory. A REO property could be managed by the bank that owns it, or they could be managed by a third-party servicer that's been hired to manage the disposition of the asset. The banks look at it as a disposition. They're not selling a property. They are disposing of an asset. And I had a problem with that while I was an asset manager of that verbiage. There seems to be a lot of delays in the selling of an REO property. The servicer has a certain level of authority that they can make decisions on. And that decision level is usually tied to something that they call severity, which is the amount of a loss that they're taking on that property. So as an asset manager, I worked for two different companies. One was Wells Fargo, and one was a company called BSI Financial. I was the number two asset manager for the entire East Coast with Wells Fargo. Yay me. Um, and I would manage about 235 properties at a time all across the country. I've sold properties in 48 states. I haven't sold anything in Alaska or North Dakota, but everywhere else I've got experience. But one of the things that we had to work on when looking at these properties is who was actually the owner and what could I do within those guidelines. Some of them I had approval to do. I could spend 15 grand to repair without checking with anything. I could list it for what I deemed fit. Other ones, say a HUD-owned property, I could do nothing more than basic property preservation, and I was tied to listing it for the appraised value. Any offer would have to be reviewed by the owner, even if it was full price. So the asset managers do have some guidelines that they have to fall upon. So we'll get into that a little bit later. Challenge. When you receive an assignment, the property may not have transferred yet to the bank that now owns the property. This will cause challenges to you as the agent because you may not be able to actually list the property. You may not be able to get the utilities activated in your name. And depending on where you're at, it can be a pretty quick process or it can be a very lengthy process. West Virginia, we're pretty good. Haven't dealt with properties in New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey. It can take not months, but in New Jersey, New York, and Massachusetts, it can take years. So be glad that you're located where you're at. Mindset, if you get into REO, you're going to be jumping through hoops. You are going to be at the at the mercy of the asset manager, and you need to be responsive, whether it be to phone calls and emails. Make sure that you're getting your assignments completed in a timely manner.
I'm working.
Know the expectations of the clients and their guidelines. Some of them will require you to go to the property every week and take photos. Sometimes it's every 2 weeks. They will have guidelines. They want to get the property trashed out within 5 days of you gaining access to it. They got some big hoops to jump through. Sometimes agents don't like that. Other times, if you can get yourself into that mindset and jump through their hoops, it can be a very good situation for you, and you can get multiple deals. Understand that you might give your professional opinion on things and they do not listen to you. You might tell them your opinion of value and they have priced it $25,000 or $30,000 above that. You got to work around that. They're looking to try to get the top dollar of the property. And unfortunately, there's agents that don't do their valuations properly, and they try to get the banks to price them low so they sell quick so the agent gets paid quickly. Another challenge on that is appraisers. A lot of banks will get 3 valuations. They'll get 2 BPOs from agents and 1 appraisal. Say in this area, the appraiser might be coming from Baltimore. It might be coming from somebody that's an hour away and doesn't know the area, and they might value the property too high, and it's a challenge that you'll have to deal with. And you'll have plenty of time to deal with it because every 30 days that you have to give updated values to your asset manager, and it'll give you an opportunity to beat them down to get the property priced where you think it should be. Know that there may be a financial commitment. Many times the servicers will require you to put the utilities in your name while the property's on the market. We'll get into that a little bit later, but when you go through the property, you got to look for health and safety issues that may keep you from turning on the electric or turning on the water. And And the invoicing on that, we'll touch on that a little bit later, but know that there may be a financial commitment to listing these properties. You do get reimbursed for it. Sometimes you got to wait 30 days or longer. So it could be worth it, but that's a decision for you to make. In understanding the life cycle of an REO property. A lot of folks think that, hey, you know, I get in with the banks and they're just going to send me this listing and I'm going to put the sign in the yard and it's going to sell. Couldn't be further from the truth. You may be looking at that property for 3 months, 6 months, a year before it actually becomes a real assignment that you can deal with. And then once it actually gets assigned to you, it might be occupied. So now what do you do? We'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. Who will you be dealing with? The REO servicers have many different people that you will work with. Traditionally, you will deal with the following people. The pre-marketer in many companies is the person that will initially make the assignment to you as the agent. They may ask you to check on the trash out, make sure that there's any code violations. You know, when you go to the property, is there 18 inches of grass? Is there anything taped to the door? That'll be who you respond to initially, is the pre-marketer. If it's determined that the property is occupied, then it's going to get transferred to the eviction rep. The eviction rep is an expert in your area of what the do's and don'ts are on evicting a person from the property. They will be working with a local attorney to get that situation worked out. There is an option to evicting somebody, and most banks will try to take that option, and that option runs through you as the agent, and it is known as a cash for keys, or my company used to call it a financial relocation assistance package. Basically, you're going to pay the people to move out, which seems, that's funny, but I'll tell you about that here in a little bit. Once we actually get access to the property, you'll deal with the asset manager. The asset manager is going to do the marketing plan. He's going to possibly ask you for bids to make repairs to the property. And they'll be the one that ultimately decides on the sales price, does the negotiating, and you'll deal with them for the majority of the time. You may deal with the next set of folks, a repair project manager, a contractor, property preservation. Property preservation are contractors that the bank hires that will do the trash out, mow the grass, change the locks for you, take care of property preservation, preserving the property so it doesn't get any worse. They may tarp the roof if the roof is leaking. You know, the bank may not want to invest that money to replace the roof or even make the repairs. They'll just put a tarp on it. Then you may deal with contractors because it might make sense to actually make repairs to the property. Full-scale repairs? Maybe, depends on which bank you work with. One of the banks, actually both banks I worked for, I could fully renovate a house, paint, carpet, appliances, HVAC, anything you want. But one of the things the asset manager has to do is to make sure that there's going to be a return on that investment. If you're going to put 50 in it, are you going to get 50 or 60 out? We'll talk about just because you put 50 in, you know, you might not get 50 out, and there's some additional fees behind that called holding costs. Next person you would deal with was the pre-closer. Once a property goes under contract, the pre-closer is going to collect the contract, review it, see if all the I's are dotted from the buyer side, and then bring it to the asset manager for their signatures. And then once you have a fully executed contract, you'll deal with the closer as far as the contract goes there on out. So yeah, there is a number of people that will be working on the bank side on a transaction with you on an REO assignment. And yeah, get used to trying to figure out who they are, because you don't always respond to the asset manager because there's more people than the asset manager working on the file. Listings and sales contracts. REO company is going to have their own separate addendums for listings and sales. you may be required to put specific language in the MLS. This verbiage may not be allowed as per your MLS guidelines. You will be required to let the asset manager know that you can't do that. Sometimes they will tell you to put in something about a pre-qualification letter. Sometimes they'll make you put in there, days 0 through 15 are for owner occupants only, and then after day 16, will they take an investor offer? There'll be verbiage in there trying to put information about a lender, which may be against the guidelines. Sometimes the verbiage that they give you is so much that it's actually larger than what an agent can enter into their MLS, which I came across in certain.
I also work in Maryland, and there have not been as many delays as there are around here.
Yes. Evictions.
They should try another title company.
But evictions, they're at a standstill right now, so there's no new inventory coming on the market right now. If you do have if your MLS has the capability, which ours does, make sure that you upload the documents into Bright so the agents can fill out the proper contracts right out of the gate and just save you some time. The assignments. You never know what you're going to get. You might get a nice house that's turnkey, ready to go. You might get the money pit. You might get something that's noted to be unsafe and uninhabitable. Anyway, the bank still expects your full professionalism on managing that asset. They want you to let them know what's going on. Is there any violations? And if so, to get that information and get it to the bank so they can pay it. They don't want reputational risk. They don't want to get a bad name in a particular area. That could happen. And what's going to happen is they're going to see the local municipalities will come across the property that says, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and they might send their code inspectors out there to start looking at those properties owned by that company to make sure that they're in compliance. So you want to stay off the radar of the local code compliance inspectors. You don't want any violations that may delay closings. Any violations that occur after you start managing them could show up on your quote unquote scorecard in the negative. You as a agent will get scored on how responsive you are to getting your tasks completed, what the property sells for based on your original list price and your BPO. There's a ton of things that you'll get scored upon. So if you want to continue getting the assignments, get those tasks completed on time. It's very, very, very important. And like I said, it does not matter if you're working on a global luxury property or a $30,000 half a duplex in a bad section in downtown. Your scorecard counts the same on both properties. So yeah, don't just throw in the towel because it's a low-end asset. The bank has their reputation to worry about. They don't want to get code compliance issues, additional fines. Stay on top of it. REOs are like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. When you go into one of these properties, it's shocking. This house, say for example, a hoarder house. Hoarder houses are around here. They're not just something that you see on TV. I've seen a number of them. Yeah. On this particular property, before you can tell the asset manager what's really going on with this house, you're going to have to get the trash out completed. And I've seen trash outs up to $30,000, which sounds insane. But in order to sell the property for a decent price, sometimes you got to do that. And they may, in some cases, ask you to take detailed photos of all the debris that's in the property, because that stuff is in fact personal property. And people can come back at a later date if the eviction process was not followed properly and sue, because they can claim that their grandmother's wedding dress was in there and we threw it out. So taking detailed photos of everything in that house, I mean, not basically an item by item, but multiple photos of every room is very important. Not only from a letting the bank know the status of the property, but from knowing what was exactly in the property. Other times, they've taken everything, including the kitchen sink. Photos, once again, are important. Multiple photos of every room, because you want the asset manager and the bank to know exactly what's going on at that property. Those photos can be used to show to the insurance company to file an insurance claim. You also may be asked to contact the local police department and file a police report on behalf of the bank. I have had this property before. I've had a property that they took out everything but the drywall and the flooring. There was not a light switch cover. There was not an HVAC. They took out the palm trees. They took the fence down around the pool, which was a wrought iron fence. And took out every toilet, vanity. Yeah, that person's out there too. So yeah, taking as many photos to document the property is very important. And like I said, the life cycle of an REO is kind of odd. You may be taking pictures of it for 6, 8 months, a year before you actually get it. And then all of a sudden, they switch the button and it's like they're on you every day asking for updates. How did it become a priority all of a sudden? Well, maybe the bank finally got the deed recorded in their name and they can move forward. In certain states, they are in limbo on what they can and can't do. This property, for example, could be abandoned for 3 years, and depending on where it's located, the bank can't mow the grass. They can't get the roof fixed because they don't have title to the property and they're not allowed to do anything to the property. So, and knowing what you can and can't do to a property is very, very important. You know, this isn't something that we worry about around here, because the getting the title in the bank's name usually happens pretty quick in the areas that we service. Let's see, do we have, I can't see any, is there any questions at this point, Sheila?
I noticed I was muted. No, Michael, the only thing is that afterwards, since we're recording this and we'll put it up, if we can also, we'll look to get your slides put on Drive, on Google Drive. That's the only
Absolutely.
thing so far.
Absolutely.
Sheila, I put in a question. I have 2 questions for you, Michael.
Okay.
The first is, how do you get these assignments? Because an
We're
agent,
getting
how do they find you? Where are you getting them? And
We're
then,
getting there.
okay, and then the second question is, dual agency an issue with REOs? Like, is that have any effect on things?
It's
Never seen it.
sometimes it's the asset manager will look. I have actually fired somebody because I think it was like 18 out of their 20 deals they got both sides on, and it seemed that they weren't
Okay.
providing all the offers that were on the properties. That 90% ratio seemed a little high. Normally they don't really care too much. They just want to get the property sold, but they want to make sure that all buyers are getting a fair shot at the property. I have managed a multiple offer situation with more than 25 offers on one property. I have had complaints go to the president of Wells Fargo that they didn't get a fair shot at the property. And we had to deal with that. So people will complain in a multiple offer situation. We see it on our level. I saw it when I was at the banks. So some of the same situations that we deal with here, multiply that by 10 on some of these properties, because there's one of the agents that I've talked to, they had 60 offers on a property. And that was insane. But you do it the same way we do it. You do the net sheet and you decide which one's the best offer for the bank. And banks especially, cash is king. They don't want inspections, they don't want appraisals, they just want to close the thing out.
A lot of times they just, the brokers are the ones that handle it. Like Steve, like Chip Ensel, like Michelle Garrett. And
Well,
yeah. West
depending on who the client is, clients like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac require the broker to be the agent.
Mhm.
Like you guys are not going to get a Fannie Mae property. They all go to a broker. And when I was talking about a financial responsibility, Fannie Mae requires the agents to foot the bill on all the repairs and send it in for reimbursement. And I've spoken to Fannie Mae brokers that are still waiting on reimbursements for like $50,000 and $60,000.
Wow.
Now, those were agents up in New York, and they had taken out home equity lines of credit to offset those expenses. But they were doing so much business with Fannie and Freddie that it was worth it. And Fannie and Freddie did reimburse you. Their checks didn't bounce. So they knew that they were going to get that reimbursement. But we'll be talking about reimbursement here in a couple of slides as well.
Michael, you also mentioned that REOs are generally foreclosures. Are all REOs foreclosures, and could one say all foreclosures are REOs, or are they two completely separate things?
Most foreclosures are REOs. I just had one, and I can speak to this one because it was a guy I used to work with tried to send one to us, and it was a property down in Rockville, Maryland, or Silver Spring, Maryland, and it was a high-end property, and we couldn't take it because we were about 70 miles away, and their network had 30 agents within 5 miles of it. So he asked me for a referral. So I was able to refer it down to one of my friends in the Silver Spring area. And this property was actually a donation. So somebody was donating a $700,000 property, I guess for tax reasons. And it ended up going to the REO department and was sold. It was a pretty unique situation. But the majority of REOs would be foreclosures, but there's a couple other situations that come in there. But the term is pretty interactive. You can say a foreclosure is an REO.
I want to interject one thing really quick, Michael, and then we'll let you get on to your slides. I just took a class with an attorney on foreclosures, and I will find the exact route. He was telling the agents a way that they can actually look for what will be a foreclosure, that looks like the path it's going to, and there's a specific way the agents can actually head them off before they even get to that point. So I'm going to look that up and share that with the agents. Please don't ask me to have that today because I got too much on my plate. It'll be this week sometime.
Yeah, there's actually a website out there that tracks now you got to pay for the information, but it'll tell you who is in the initial stages of default.
And there's a way that they cannot pay for it. He was talking about, because he's an attorney and that's what he basically does. And so I'll find it. It was pretty cool. I didn't even know about it.
Well, a lot of it actually shows up in your local papers.
Mm-hmm.
Notice of default. So
Every day.
anyways, but holding costs. What are holding costs? Holding costs are the losses the bank is taking by the property not selling. You got to figure that these properties have been having the mortgage not paid on it for, say, a year. And the holding costs can vary from $80 to $100 a day. That's how much the bank loses every day that the property's not on the market. Negative amortization, forced place insurance, property preservation, paying the taxes, utilities, attorney's fees. Those things add up really quick. And those are some of the costs that are included, because you might have a house that's sitting there for a year and nobody's paid the mortgage, and depending on how the bank calculates that stuff, they've lost $36,000. So the holding cost is a reason, if you've ever seen an REO property, they try to penalize you if you don't close on time and you want an extra 5 days, that they're going to charge you $50 a day. This is why, is the holding costs that they're incurring. And that's why they're so very stringent on you meeting their timelines when it comes to closing. Now, it's funny when they can't close on time because they don't have a clear title, that they're not giving you $50 a day, giving the buyer $50 a day, but they do try to enforce this in most cases. And it is in their contracts. So yeah, do your best to meet those deadlines, and try not to be ultra quick on your closing dates, because inevitably something comes up if you get too aggressive, and they may try to charge your buyer these extra fees. Getting the business. The banks and mortgage servicers will use a platform to make assignments and communicate with the agents. Basically, these are interactive websites that allow real-time communications and a place for you to upload your documents. Below are a couple of the ones that the majority of the banks and mortgage servicers use. Some of them are free. Some of them charge you to join. And depending on what that fee structure is, will usually dictate how much of a referral fee or administrative charges that they charge you when you actually sell one of their properties. But yeah, these four are probably the most popular. Equator's the oldest, and it's very antiquated. ResNet and Pyramid are used by the majority. Acceleros is used by a couple of them. But yeah, Pyramid is free to join. As Nicole asked a little bit earlier, how will they find me? You can be proactive and go out online and search for REO servicers and try to register with them. Some of them, they find you, you don't find them. But how will they find you? One place that you can go to is reonetwork.com. It is a place where agents can register themselves, and it's a place where asset managers search for agents if they don't have anybody in that area. Kind of similar to our REO, they'll have a zip code coverage that you'll enter, and if somebody's looking for somebody in a certain zip code and they don't have anybody in their network, they will go to a resource like this and look for somebody. And like I said, be responsive, take those phone calls. REO is very similar to RELO, where you have to be responsive, you have to be on your game, and you get graded and judged on how quickly you respond. So if you're serious about getting into REO, take those phone calls and make sure you get those tasks completed in a very timely manner. Like, there's some verbiage in there. Each asset needs to be managed to the client's satisfaction. And remember that all these properties are a liability to the owner, and they expect to be given professional service. Basically, the servicers sign an agreement with the owner stating, we're going to be looking at these properties on a weekly basis to make sure that your investment is protected. So they don't care if it's a $25,000 property in bad condition. They want to get the most that they can out of that $25,000 property and make sure that there's no more liens, encumbrances, code violations. They want to clean it up, make sure it's not an issue, and sell it and get it off their books, because every day it's on there, they're losing money. And you got to take everyone that comes your way. If you start cherry picking and trying to take the high-end properties, They're going to figure that out and make a move. One of the things that you're going to get is a BPO. And this is a standard BPO. It's basically a market analysis. We'll expect you to fill this out very detailed. You have spaces for you to make adjustments. You know, if a house is 200 square foot larger than a subject, you got to make an adjustment. If a property has a 2-car garage versus a 1-car garage, you got to make an adjustment. They have a place in there for repairs, so you can mention what repair items are needed and to estimate how much they're going to be, because the amount of repairs is going to play into whether that they want to go as is or make repairs to the property. Because sometimes they'll get a return on those repairs, sometimes they will not. But yeah, you guys are the eyes and ears of the bank. So doing these, the BPOs and making them as full of information as possible is key to the bank. Expectations once you get an assignment. Like I said, respond quickly. Get out to the property within 24 hours if possible. Take all the assignments that you can get, because you will get graded on turning down stuff. Let the asset manager know the property conditions immediately, especially if there is any health, safety, or code violations. And always take lots of pictures to document the condition of the property. You know, whether it's 18 inches of grass or broken out windows, a hole in the roof, there's still a car there. You know, these things determine the next course of action. Always take photos. You can never take enough photos of an REO property.
And take someone with you, because these properties are scary. This sounds wonderful, but a lot of these properties are kind of scary.
Yeah, I actually was trying to get three agents that work in different markets on today. One from Philadelphia, one from New York City, and one from Boston. And one from New York City, actually, he wanted to come on. He is the largest Century 21 company in the country. And he just told Century 21 that he can't do any more REO presentations to Century 21 because they asked him to vouch for all the Century 21 agents to get him into the different banks. And he can't do that because he doesn't know everybody. So he said, I just told Century 21 I can't do it, and I'd feel bad coming over and doing it for you, Mike, but I'd love to. And he offered to look at my slides and make sure I was touching all the bases. But yeah, I was going to have those guys add some color, but yeah, you got to watch out because some of these properties, you don't know who's going to be in there when you go traipsing around.
Yeah, because some of them have been sitting there a long time, and some of them leave the houses open. Sometimes there's animals in them. Sometimes there's people in them.
Yep, it's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Photographic expectations. Like I was just saying a couple slides ago, you got to take a ton of photos. The asset manager will in most cases, never visit the property. So you guys are the eyes and the ears, the boots on the ground. Take as many photos as possible. Photos should be time-stamped. This provides a timeline showing when you were at the property. It can also be used in insurance claims because it'll show on September the 5th that the air conditioning unit was there, but then on September the 12th, when you went back out, it wasn't there. So it'll give them a timeline on maybe when the theft occurred or the damage occurred. And those photos do actually get reviewed. And do not ever try to reuse photos from a prior date. They get audited, and if they find out you're doing that, you will get removed from that network. Usually the expectation on the photos is every week. Sometimes they'll let you do every 2 weeks. You know, They want to make sure that they are seeing this property on a weekly basis and you are visiting it. I had an example of a property that the agent had the assignment and they were uploading photos and here it came April and she uploaded some photos and there was damage to the property. It had caught on fire. Like, okay. So I reached out to the fire department to find out the details because she didn't have any details. And the fire actually occurred in January. And this agent had never been back to the property because it was wintertime and they didn't want to drive out there. And all the photos that she uploaded had been reused. And so that was that agent was removed from the network. I'm not sure what management did, if they took any actions against her. But yeah, that's something that could have happened. You know, we could have a property with a small hole in the roof and it's going to become a large hole in the roof and then it's going to damage the interior if we don't fix that hole in the roof, and we're not going to know there's a hole in the roof unless you guys are going out there. It's usually best to take a minimum of 2 photos of every room from different angles. Do the attic, do the basement, do the mechanicals, the furnace, the air conditioning unit, the panel box, the water heater, everything. So you know on a certain date it was there, and it can make it easier to pinpoint the date of a vandalism or a theft if something like that would occur. Talks again about taking pictures of personal possessions when you initially go into a property before doing a trash out. We've had people leave valuable items there and they will sue. They will file a complaint. But yeah, the more photos you take, the more you're taking care of your bank and protecting your own backside.
Calls on it, but we're not going to run out there and show it to people who aren't qualified. I'm not going to run out and show it.
Yeah, well, we'll be getting to that as well. Your first property visit, what should you do? The first property visit, you're going to be determining, is it occupied or is it vacant? Sometimes that's an easy call. Sometimes it's not an easy call. Sometimes there's a car in the driveway and lights are on. It's probably going to be occupied. Take photos. Show them what's going on. There's cars in the driveway. The grass is mowed. At that point, they might put that property into an eviction status. You won't be on your own in that. Like I said, the evictions rep and the local attorney will work with you on guiding you through what they want to do. Are they going to do a formal eviction? Are they going to offer them a cash for keys? Cash for keys isn't as scary as it sounds. So and you're actually doing them a favor. But the determining if it's vacant or not, once you determine it's vacant, they want you to secure it, get the locksmith out there ASAP, take pictures of everything that's in the property, and note any potential violations. So yeah, taking as many photos, once again, as many photos to document what's going on at the property. When you finally gain access to the property, here's some things to look for. On the left-hand side, don't say that's mold. That's a discoloration because you're not a mold inspector. Mold is definitely a 4-letter word in REO. They look at it as a big issue. And sometimes they will do a remediation to take out all that damaged drywall and make sure that that issue is resolved. And then they don't do the build back. So those are properties that need to be sold to cash buyers. Sometimes they will do the full remediation and build back, make it easier for you to sell.
It's always wise to wear a mask when you're going in these houses also that have been sitting for a very long time.
Yes, that is true. The middle one, stolen copper. When you get to go down in the basement, that is one thing to keep an eye on, is looking for copper, because copper is a big target for thieves. And when these properties sit for months and months and months, somebody can break in and go for that copper. Not only is it an issue because it's going to make it more difficult to sell because now it's not really financeable, but with the bank's expectation for you to have the utilities activated, you don't want to turn the water on and have those pipes missing because they're just going to ruin the house. So make sure that you do a pretty good inspection of the house before you would get any of the utilities activated, because you don't want to have a fire start because of loose electrical wires. You don't want to turn the water on and have it go all over the basement floor. Or there be, other places in the house where the copper's been stolen, say out of the second floor bathroom, and now it's just dripping down through the ceiling from the second floor to the first floor. Yeah, some shady stuff out there. That third picture there, they've just taken the whole exterior condensing unit. Take a photo, and we're going to have to get those wires fixed as far as capped off, or hopefully the bank will spend the money to put an air conditioning unit back there, because that's going to be a tough sale now. But that's going to be a decision the asset manager makes. But like I said before, you are the eyes and ears of the bank. So take as many pictures as possible and let them know what's going on with the property. Utilities. Why do you need to have them activated? Well, in order for a property to be financeable, the utilities have to be in working condition. And if the bank is going to make any repairs to the property, the contractors will need water and electric to most likely make those repairs. So that is going to be an expectation of you to get the utilities turned on. With the electric, pretty basic. Find out who the local provider is. You'll have access to the property, and you'll want to turn the main off at the breaker box before they activate power to the house. If the source of heat source is other than electric, you may have to check into oil, gas, or propane. But yeah, heat pumps, electric baseboard heat, the majority of the houses are going to have have electric as their main heat source. Water. Always turn the water main off before you have the water activated. If you don't do that, you can send the city out there to activate the water. And if the water main's on, water's going to get turned on, and it's just going to leak and leak and leak through the house. So definitely turn that water main off before they activate the water. Sewer and septic. You may have to get the septic pumped. Usually the banks will wait for the buyer to ask for that to get done. But that's usually not a situation that you'll have to work with. Sewer, you have to get the sewer turned back on. Sometimes, many times, there's an outstanding bill from the previous owner. And you'll just have to, depending on what the bank's mode of operation is, you'll either pay that and get reimbursed for it, or send that information to the bank to get it turned on. In most cases, on a bank-owned property, you may have to get something from the bank stating that you're their agent and that you have permission to get the utilities turned on in your name. Challenges. Title issues. Sometimes the title has not been recorded. The neighbors. Sometimes the neighbors aren't too happy that the bank foreclosed on their friend. Sometimes it's not actually just neighbors. Sometimes they're relatives. Property needs to be re-foreclosed. The foreclosure process is pretty strict, and sometimes the bank didn't do it properly. Sometimes there was a document that was not given to the potential to the homeowner in time, and it gets brought to their attention, and they need to go through the whole process again. So that's a challenge at times. Sometimes adjoining property owners won't grant access. That happens a lot if there's say a cul-de-sac owned by a family, and there's a right of way to get to this property that got foreclosed on. That's a challenge. This might sound crazy. Sometimes they foreclose on the wrong property. Now that can be as easy as a property that has an extra lot to it, lots A and B, and the house is on property A, and they only foreclosed on property B. That happens, I won't say frequently, but it does happen. That'll come up, and that's going to delay closing because they're going to have to go through the process on the proper lot. Hopefully, none of you guys will have to deal with that. It wasn't something that happened frequently, but it does happen. And it happens because the title attorneys they hire are normally regional title attorneys. They're not going to be using the local guys like a Pill and Pill or Chris Luttrell. If they did it, it would be so much easier, but they use big attorneys that just do multiple states, and they really don't have a whole lot of knowledge of the local area. Sometimes it causes problems. When you have one of these, and you might wonder, why isn't the asset manager listening to you? Agents get disappointed when their recommendations are not followed by the asset manager. You're the professional, right? The banks have their guard up. The REO industry has been plagued with fraud since its inception, and this causes the banks and servicers to scrutinize everything. Here's some things that they're on the lookout for. Agents submitting inflated repair bids. Agents always saying, sell it as is. Agents holding offers from other agents and only submitting their own offers. Agents viewing terms on multiple offers and sharing them with their buyers so they can increase their offer so they can get the house. Agents using relatives to complete work on the properties. Agents billing for repairs that aren't completed. BPO values that are too low, or repair values that are too high to steer the asset manager to list as is. Agents for submitting fake second bids to encourage the asset manager to take an inflated first bid from the agent's preferred contractor. This stuff happens all the time. They're very wary of getting taken advantage of. That's why some banks sell everything as is and they don't want to deal with contractors. Some banks will want to deal with contractors because they want to get them every dollar that they can out of the property. So I can beseech you to be honest and upfront, trustworthy, because they have people behind the scenes that look at all this stuff. They did a LexisNexis report when somebody threw up a red flag, and they could find out that the contractor was the third cousin of the agent, and that'd be a conflict of interest. They would take a second bid, and they would make sure that contractor was a licensed contractor, and they would do a search for them. And sometimes that second contractor, nobody ever found out who they were, and it was determined to be a fake non-entity contractor, and the agent was either too lazy to get a second bid, or they were trying to get them just to use the first contractor. So you just follow the directions. Don't use any relatives to do repair work. It's just be honest. Part of our creed as agents, honest dealing and ethical dealing. It applies in REO as well. Invoicing. I know Leanne's on here, and I'm sure she has a lot to say about invoicing, but REO invoicing can be a pain in the butt, but you got to do it to their terms and conditions to get reimbursed. You got to make sure the invoice is professional and not handwritten. So even though you might get a great deal from that good old country boy that's in business for a year mowing grass and making basic repairs, if he's doing everything on a sheet of notebook paper, it's probably not going to fly for the bank. They're going to want to see the vendor's home address or their business address, their email, their phone number, and their license and their business name on their invoice, not just something that says $35 for a grass cut. You want to see proof of payment. If it's something that you paid for, they're going to want a copy of that check. along with the invoice. The banks will require your contractors to be licensed, bonded, and insured. So make sure that you have a copy. They'll be asked for a copy of their W-9, their insurance, and the business license on file. If you plan on using these guys multiple times, it's a good idea to keep it in your computer so you can just have that ready to upload for the bank, because they don't keep it. If they do work on 10 different properties for the same bank, they're going to ask for that information 10 different times. And anytime you get approved for work, make sure you keep a copy of that approval, because heaven forbid that somebody does $1,500 worth of work on a house and you submit that invoice and they don't have a copy of it, and say that asset manager got fired or it switched from his portfolio to another portfolio, and they don't have any documentation that that work was approved, that's a bad situation. But yeah, keep copies of everything. And you need to submit your invoices immediately to get paid, especially if closing's coming up, because once a property closes out, they usually give you about 21 to 30 days to get everything submitted. And if you don't get it submitted in that time frame, you're not getting reimbursed. Another thing you have to deal with is HOAs and condo associations. Like with the city looking for code violations, you're going to have to get the estoppel, basically the information regarding the outstanding bills for the HOA or the condo association, and send that to the asset manager. And of course, if there's any repairs needed, you may have to get the HOA approval on any projected repairs, because it has to meet a certain style of roof shingle or a certain color on the front door. In Florida, we had to put sod down rather than grass seed, and it was a requirement stated in the HOA. So they might be a little ticky-tacky on stuff, but you got to follow the guidelines and their rules. Questions at this time?
I personally don't have a question, but I do want to, this is a great lesson that you're teaching, because I think a lot of people think that this may be an easy route to take as an agent, but for all the new agents, personally, I think, and Michael, you tag onto this, I've only done one in my life, and I said it was the last one I'd ever do. I made more money by actually going out, get a niche. We're talking about outlist, outlast, getting out, getting listings. This may be your cup of tea, but realize it's time, money, and headaches. Michael's covering an amazing amount of information, and I appreciate this. So that way people can truly think, is this what I really want to do? Some people like it.
Yeah, this is, I'll be honest with you, this is almost to me trying to scare you away from trying to doing it.
Yes.
But there's agents out there that do a tremendous amount of business with this, but you have to be very dedicated, whether you're a one-man show or you've got a team going on. Mm-hmm. There was a broker I dealt with in Baltimore who would handle up to 250 properties at a time. So
she must have had a staff of people to help her.
Yeah.
They had, yeah, he would do all the BPOs and property inspection.
Right.
But he had an accountant that did all the billing.
Yes.
And
I wanted to say, when I was doing REO properties, if I had two going at the same time, it was a lot for me. Yes.
I think
it's about time management.
Exactly what I was going to say. As a real estate agent, you got to figure out, why are you in it? What are you wanting? No, why are you in real estate business? Are you in real estate for today's business and here and now? Are you wanting to build a sustainable and scalable business with relationships to get referrals and stuff? you're going to be better off as a professional if you're wanting to build something that you can turn around when you go to retire and you want to sell your business. You're not going to be, I mean, you're better off building the right kind, the other kind of business. So I'm glad Michael's sharing all the nightmares here. So if somebody listens to him today and then decides to still do it, kudos to you.
And you know what? He's not really even sharing the nightmares, because I used to work for a broker that what I did was BPOs for him.
Yeah.
And it would be before and just watching the houses before, and it would be after the bank got them. And then it would be the interior BPOs. And you're walking into places as a woman, you're walking into places
Yes.
that are sometimes wonderful, but a lot of times not. And that hoarding picture he showed up there, I walked into one where I had to walk on top of all the stuff. So it's he's not even giving you a lot of the bad stuff, because when you actually go out there,
Yes.
I see some of these on the regular property, some properties you're going out to now that are just not, you know, they're selling for a low price, but it takes the right person to do it. 'Cause
Yes.
it's very difficult.
Good point. Good point,
On-
Debbie.
On
Michael,
commissions.
I'm sorry, Michael, are you going to at all speak even briefly about the buying side of REOs and foreclosures?
I can.
Everybody, heard a lot of agents say like it can be nightmarish and it's complicated, but I haven't really heard the details as to why that would be.
I mean, it's a transaction. There's gonna be some additional little steps that you might have to jump through as far as filling out the seller's required addendums, and of course they all supersede the state contracts, and they all benefit the seller and protect the seller.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, buying an REO property, I mean, other than the fact that, I mean, you can do a home inspection on it and find out what's going on with it, but you know, it's a little bit of a crapshoot if you don't do that and know what you're getting into.
Right. Is the length of time in purchasing these properties typically longer than your average transaction?
No, not normally. I mean, there's the occasional one where there's a title problem on the seller side and they have to address that. There is a time when, since you're dealing with an entity, you know, banks work Monday through Friday, you're not going to get an answer on a Saturday or a Sunday. So there might be some additional time lost there. There may be a situation, I talked about the servicing for others, and maybe every offer that comes in on a certain property, the asset manager is not allowed to make the decision on whether they can take it or not. And they have to send that to the actual bank, or, you know, the bank's representative to get signed off on.
Okay.
Michael, when I did REOs, especially the veteran ones and the FHA, there was a certain period of time that you had to let the public bid on it before the investors came in.
True. When I was with Wells Fargo, we had days, I guess they said 0 through 14, but first day on market to 2 weeks in, would it be only owner occupants? And then after that, it would get opened up to investors. They had a philosophy of trying to repair all the properties, and I'll hit on that slide here in a second. But it was kind of a good thought process.
Well, I think for the agents, and this is just my opinion, diversification for what you're doing is always important. Try the REOs, but it's like putting all your eggs like with a builder. You really want to diversify your business and go at different things, luxury homes, first-time home buyers, so that if an REO dumps you, you're not sitting there and saying, oh, well, what happened now? What do I do now?
Yes. Well, speaking of you're putting all your eggs in one basket, the commissions. On REO properties, the seller is most likely taking a loss. The advertised commissions will be between 2 to 3%. And inevitably, there are going to be either some sorts of technology fees, administrative fees, a referral fee that could be as low as, say, like $100 or $125, or as much as 25 to 40% of the commission. So usually if it's the 3% commission, that's going to be where they're hitting you with the 25 to 40%. So you're probably never going to get the full 40%. I mean, a full 3%. There's going to be some sort of fees and whatnot that cut into your commissions. In quantity over quality, many agents will manage dozens of properties and it's their main business. Others will supplement their income by doing a couple here and there. Depends on what you want to do. You will continue to get, if you get into it, you will continue to get properties if you keep your score up. You get scored on any number of things from, like I said, completing your tasks on time to the percentage of the list price that the property sells for. And the bad part about that is sometimes the asset manager lists it higher than what you recommended. So your score takes a hit, even if it sells for what you told them to price it at, but they priced it at a higher price. So there's some odd things on the scorecard.
Yet he has told the group how it's impossible to manage more than one.
We can't hear you, Leanne. Michael, how many more slides do you have?
Oh, I'm kind of getting to that point.
Okay.
Here are some
I'm
acronyms.
going to have to hop off here in about 10 minutes because I have another Zoom to go on.
Oh yeah. Here's some acronyms. Yeah, pretty obvious. AM, asset manager, BPO, broker price opinion, cash for keys, CFK, NPL, non-performing loan. They're not performing, therefore it goes into foreclosure. A GSE is a government-sponsored entity, which would be Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, some of the big guys. LTV, loan to value. ROI, return on investment. MBS, mortgage-backed securities. That's when somebody invests in basically large pools of mortgages. And they can buy a pool of 1,000 foreclosed properties, and it's going to be referred to as, a portfolio of mortgage-backed securities. MERS is the mortgage electronic registration system. The settlement attorneys will look at this to see who's got the loan on a property. ARV is a term the asset managers use for the after repaired value, because they're going to say, okay, it's in this shape. If we do carpet and paint and appliances, what's the after repaired value going to be? Certificate of occupancy, joint venture, FMV, fair market value. I mean, there's a bunch of acronyms that'll get thrown at you. Just keep an eye out on, and don't be afraid to ask somebody if you come across one. I was, believe Nicole was asking a question, and the as is versus repairs, it gets to the holding costs. Some banks will want to cut their losses and get rid of that property as soon as possible.
Because I don't have that.
Other ones will actually make repairs, because not only can they recoup some of the losses, but they will now make that property appealing to the majority of the buyer pool, i.e. USDA, FHA, VA buyers, because it's financeable. And another way to think about it is when they're out there selling these properties, getting market value is so important, because every property that you sell can negatively impact the neighbor's properties. So like one of these banks, if they have a house in a nice neighborhood and they don't make any repairs to it and they just dump it, that sales price shows up and, maybe negatively impacts everybody in that neighborhood's values for a while. Now, granted, a lot of appraisers don't like to use REO properties as comps, but sometimes if they're coming for the area, they will get used. So always trying to get that, maximum value for your client, whether it's a normal traditional seller or a bank, is very important.
Can you mute Leanne?
Oh, sure, that'd be just fine. Do you want to put that up there, or do you send it to me by email, or how does that?
Where is she? Okay. All right, guys, now I'll open it up to some questions for you. I do have a list of, and you'll need to reach out to me personally, of places that you can register to try to get these things. Have an email with some links that you're able to go on there and reach out to these servicers and get on their list. BPO had come up numerous times. In West Virginia, you're not supposed to get paid to do a BPO. It is legal in other states. Some agents, do that and they get, 50, 65 bucks a shot doing those BPOs. Is it necessarily a good time investment? Not necessarily. You're just doing it and not getting the assignment. It's 65 bucks, but could you have been doing something more creative with that time? So,
Janine asked, should you hire and pay for a home inspector?
when working with the buyers, absolutely. You never know what could have happened at that house before you took possession of it. I had a property in a beautiful neighborhood that was, first glance, it was perfect, except they went into every room that had carpet and poured paint on the carpet, just in the middle, just enough to have to replace the carpet. They stole all the beautiful cherry cabinets out of the kitchen. And I didn't think much of it at the time, but there was what I thought was a bunch of makeup and powdery substance in the upstairs master bath. And I ended up getting the kitchen cabinets replaced. I reached out to the original builder who told me exactly what type they were, so they matched up perfectly. Got some paint redone. Got the carpet replaced. Now the weird one was that powdery substance in the upstairs bathroom. That was epoxy. And if we would have ran just a little bit of water in the plumbing, it would have hardened in the middle of the house and completely clogged up all the plumbing in the house. So, and I had talked to the original listing agent who had it, and she warned me that the original people had warned her that if it got foreclosed on, they were going to booby trap the house and do this, that, and the other. So I was able to determine that they didn't put epoxy down in the drain. And if I hadn't ran the water and just ran it for an hour straight, that stuff could have got activated with the water and hardened in the pipes, and we would have had to tear out drywall and replace all the plumbing in the house. So people do crazy stuff like that.
When you're making your adjustments on your BPO, do you have any guidance as far as average?
I do. And you guys, I mean, don't take me word for word, but this is what I do. I usually give about a $3,500 value to a carport, $10,000 to a one car, $20,000 to a two car. For a basic full bath, it's about $5,500. For a half bath, $3,500. Square footage between $25 and $30 above grade, and between $10 and $15 below grade. Obviously on the bathroom, there's a difference between a standard single vanity toilet shower tub combo, or you've got the separate shower and jetted tub and double vanity. So you got to take some adjustments like that into consideration. You'll make an adjustment for all brick versus vinyl, or a brick front. I mean, some little adjustments like that. Is gas heat or a heat pump superior to electric baseboard? Absolutely. Put a little bit of adjustment there. How a house with central air, I'll usually give about a $5,500 to $6,000 adjustment versus a house with no air, or even window units, because I mean, window units do have some value, but central air would have, you know, substantial advantage over window units. Yeah, you got to look at all those things. Storage, does it have a storage shed out back? You know, could that be a $3,000 to $5,000 item? New windows, you know, as opposed, you know, new double pane tilt-in windows as opposed to the old single frame wooden frame windows. There's probably going to be a little adjustment that you'll make there. And with the MLS nowadays, that you can really get in there and see the condition of the properties. That you'll see, you know, whether it's a comp or the subject you're looking at. Is it hardwood floors and tile versus vinyl and builder grade carpet? You know, is it, you know, base countertops? Or are you talking granite, style stone, or something upgraded? So yeah, use that MLS and actually look at the photos of the property. I mean, that's the same thing for a CMA, basically. You know, get in there and see what the competition is and make your adjustments. My values, you know, not to pat myself on the back, I used to be able to go into a house and I'd usually be off the top of my head within $5,000 high or low before I started crunching my numbers. But yeah, no, getting to know your market, getting out and seeing as many properties as you can and seeing what's selling, I mean, just will benefit you. That's why I used to love going on tour back in the day when everybody went on a tour or caravan or whatever your company called it, just to see houses. It was great. Don't know if we'll ever get back to those days, but every so often it'd be nice. We've done that in West Virginia. We got out you know, last year and visited, you know, Shepherdstown, Martinsburg, and Berkeley Springs. We all took a sales meeting and went out and looked at some properties, and it was actually really good. And it was an exercise of using the Zap application Insights, because I got Rick Kucharski to start doing Insights, which was a win-win for me. So yeah, use your tools. But anyways, I'm a little bit past 10 o'clock here, guys. Does anybody have any questions? Or absolutely feel free to contact me directly, because I could talk about this stuff all day.
I think that was very good. Michael, thank you so much. Very informative. And you are going to be able to take the slides and see about getting them put up on Google Drive.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
These are, you know, I'll share them, put it on the Google Drive for us. No problem whatsoever.
Okay. Very good information. Thank you again, Michael. And I'm going to reclaim host so I can stop the recording. And
don't forget, is Tracy going to be on to share?
She had internet problems, and plus it's like 10:19 now. So next week, everyone next week, Tracy's going to get on and she's going to go over preparing seller net sheets. So that's going to be good. After the topic is taught next week, then we'll try to make it a little bit more concise, and Tracy will do that. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you guys so much for joining.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy.